Hey Pod fam, it's Laura,
And my name's Rachel.
and welcome to the Tea with Laura and Rachel, hosted by two lifelong friends whose goal is to cultivate a community of like minded women who love to grow in all aspects of life. On this podcast, we're going to be covering everything from health and fitness to spirituality and relationships. Join us on our journey to living a more meaningful and inspired life.
Welcome to episode number 1.
Woo!
What are you drinking today, Laura?
Today, I am drinking my favorite nighttime tea, a LaLa Lavender. It's a white tea with a very strong lavender.
That sounds amazing.
It's delicious. What are you drinking?
I have a tried and true peppermint tea.
Oh, peppermint tea. You know what? There is nothing better than peppermint tea.
There's really not, it puts you right to sleep, but you can also drink it during the day and it's energizing. It's
Well, and it
great.
fixes everything. Like anytime I got a stomach ache, peppermint tea.
Exactly. Alrighty. So, I guess we can just jump into how we know each other.
Yeah, I guess that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Do you want to say?
So, we have known each other since I was 5.
Oh God, probably like earlier than
Yeah, I think you were like 9 or 10 when we met.
that. I think I was actually 8. Like we're
Wow,
going back a long time now.
we really are.
Yeah, back in the 90s, good old days.
Those were the good old days back with the ponies and everything.
Yes, and if you didn't
Yes.
know already, we are horse girls. So, some of these podcasts are going to get a little wild because, the equestrian lifestyle,
It's really 0 to 100 real quick. Some days you're lazy, other days you wake up at 4:30 in the morning and you don't get back till 10.
exactly. And, sleep is just something you do in your spare time.
Exactly. Sleep is for the dead.
So, anyway, I guess we met when we were, 4 and 8. Life of the Ponies, did all that. And, I wouldn't say that we were like friends in the younger days because it was more like just the barn fam kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that especially at that age, the age gap between 4 to 8, it's a pretty big jump.
That is, I know it's so funny. Like, as kids, age gaps are huge. And then as you're an adult, you're like, oh, you're like, whatever, kind of in the same generation as me. It's like more generational friends. We don't worry about years.
Eventually, the age gap feels like it closes around age 20.
Yeah, I definitely say that because, in fact, that's kind of when you came into the Pony Club friend group when you were what, like 18.
Yeah, and I think that the first 2 years were a bit of a learning curve for me because I was going through things that you had already gone through. But at about age 20, 21, it was pretty good.
Yeah, we kind of balanced out, figured each other out in our friendships, and we've been kind of, I don't know, glued to the hip ever since, I'd say.
Pretty much. I mean, we're starting a podcast together, so
Yeah,
how
this is
much
big.
more glued to the hip could you get? All right, so that's how we know each other. What are we going to be talking about today?
So today we are actually going to be doing a little bit of an intro to our dream trip. Now, this was a trip that we took back in 2019, but I think you'd agree when I say that this trip was actually manifested in the fall of 2017.
Yes, I would definitely agree. We didn't make the decision to go yet, but the seed was planted, shall we say.
Definitely. And so the trip we are talking about is a 5.5, 6 week trip that we did to Thailand, Australia, and New Zealand. I can definitely say it changed my life. And I'm pretty sure it changed yours too.
It definitely did. I did not come back the same person as I was when I left, so
Yeah, no, the things we learned on that trip were just at like the surface level, it was at a spiritual level. It hit every level.
it really did. And I also think too that I owe that trip a lot for the friendship that we now have.
Absolutely. Because, like we said, we'd been friends for a long time. But that was really the turning point of when we connected on a deeper level and a deeper understanding of who we were as people and who we were trying to become.
And I think too, it was when you basically spend every waking minute with somebody, you really start to learn like how does this person communicate and how can I properly approach my relationship with them that I don't find that you get when it's just a casual friendship, you know?
Absolutely. That was kind of like forced confinement, but in a good way because we were on beautiful beaches in beautiful places, meeting lots of cool people and doing some really amazing things.
Yeah. And even watching some surfing movies in there, but you know what? That was exciting in itself.
Surf's up. It's great.
It Chicken Joe. All right.
Oh no, Chicken Joe.
Well, before we get into it, I just want to add a little disclaimer that with the current state of the world, we are in no way recommending that anyone travels right now for your own health and safety, but also the health and safety of others. But with how far out we planned our trip, we do think that giving yourself a year to even longer than a year, like year and a half to 2 years, it really just formulates a incredible experience that you wouldn't get if it was you just planned a month out. And I also think too that right now we're all kind of looking for something to look forward to, so maybe planning your big trip is that idea for you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, a lot of people, they can just plan a one-off trip and, good for them. I'm really glad the approach that we took, like we said before, the seed was planted in 2017 from a friend of ours moving to Australia. Um, but it was really, I'd say, January of 2018 that we were like, okay, we are going to do this. And that's kind of when we started the planning, and it was more than just where were we going to go. It was, how are we going to save? Uh, what places are going to mean the most to us? What do we want to do when we get there? And yeah, like it, it really did take us a whole year to plan and build this dream trip. And, I know I wouldn't change anything for it. I'm so glad everything that we did.
Exactly. And I think too it was I still remember the day that we decided we were going to go. We were in a Tim Hortons in our riding boots.
Yeah,
That was a good day. And yeah, I just think that it was it really by taking the time to figure out what was the most important to us, it it really helped make it an experience of a lifetime.
absolutely, and I remember in that Tim Hortons, you were like, "Okay, let's book the ticket, leave, next year, and we're gonna leave for, like, 3 months," and I was just like, "We're gonna leave?"
Yes.
I took a little bit more convincing on that long trip.
I remember that it was we probably spent about 2 hours in there, and I was, like, trying to position it from one direction to the next, like, "Which way can I get in there to convince her this is a good idea?"
And, like, kinda it's important to state the life that we were in at the time, so, you were still in your 3rd or 4th year? You were in your 4th year at the time, and then I was, about a year and a half post-grad, so I was working, and the
Mhm.
thought of, like, "Oh my god, you want me to take how long off work and travel? Like, are you crazy?" Um, so yeah, like, from my point of view, I was just like, "This is a big leap, and I don't know, like, what's work gonna think?" So yeah, it definitely took me a little bit longer to come around, but once I did and we did that trip, I was just like, "Okay, let's do it again." Like,
Yeah.
work can wait. Your life.
Yeah. My point of view at the time was I was still a happy-go-lucky college
Yeah,
girl.
you didn't have responsibilities yet.
So, I had no responsibilities, just I was like, we could leave in June," you know?
I know, and I'm just like, I have bills to
You were
pay."
like, absolutely not. Maybe we need a bit more time to plan." But, I
Mhm.
mean, look at us now. Now we basically plan all of our trips 2 years in
Yeah,
advance.
yeah, and we've got a few, I think, further out than that,
Yes, we do.
but, We're just waiting on the world to open up again.
One day we will ride horses in the desert.
Absolutely. Oh, safari on horseback, I'm down.
I'm so down. But
Mhm.
let's get on track because what we're going to be doing with a lot of our podcast episodes is we're going to be touching on, let's just say that we have a slew of different topics that we want to make episodes about. So this is going to be one episode in our travel series. And today we're going to be focusing on our philosophy when we planned this trip because what actually wound up happening is we only went for 5 weeks as opposed to the original 3 months. So, what we wanted to talk about today is why we chose to do that versus the traditional, when people graduate from school, usually they go for 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, no, and that's so true, and I feel like our 2, not quite polarizing opinions on how long the trip should be, I don't wanna say that's the right word, but definitely our, different, viewpoints on how long we should go definitely played a factor in, um, kinda making a really great trip because you were the one who was ready to go for months on end, where I was
Hmm.
just like, "Okay, I guess I could go for 2 weeks," you know?
Yeah,
Um,
you were like maybe just Thailand.
yeah, I know, I was just like, "Why don't we just do 1 country and, then we'll go back and do another one," but
But I think we landed on a good happy medium with 5 weeks there.
yeah, we really did, and how our trip was broken out. So we had the 3 countries, and we essentially did 2 weeks in each country. Now, of course, all the countries are quite large, and for budget purposes and time, we didn't get to see everything, but I was pretty happy with what we saw. We really did research each place and kinda got a little taste of each area. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think too, and this is going to go into one of our top reasons about why we chose to travel the way that we did, was that the amount of money that we saved up got us so much further in
Mhm.
those areas versus where it would have gotten us if we had done 4 months.
Yeah, like, I know after, 5, 6 weeks, our budgets were getting pretty thin. Um, our standard of living was, on a downward trend, and we didn't quite have to call home for money, but, I think if we had stayed any longer than 6 weeks, we might have been making the phone call.
Yes, when we were in New Zealand, actually, we wanted to have a nice fancy dinner before we left to go back home. And we found that to about maybe 50% of the way through New Zealand, we said to each other, maybe we should just stop doing big fun experiences so that we can actually have this dinner.
Yep, and we did have the dinner, took a lot of pizza leading up to that dinner.
It
You
did.
know, there's a lot of Domino's in New Zealand, and it's all $10, so that was kinda how we fed ourselves for the end of the trip until we could have those beautiful, New Zealand steaks with New Zealand wine on the ocean.
Yes, we did. So, yeah, that is, I guess, reason number one why we chose our philosophy for traveling. And just to reiterate, it was just the money that we got to save up in the time between, well, Laura was working, but for me, the time between graduation to when we left, it got us way further over 4 weeks than we would have over 3 months. And by traveling the way that we did, we got to see 3 countries as opposed to just one. And not just 3 countries, but there were big long haul flights with each of them.
Mhm,
And we also got to live a pretty comfortable lifestyle when we were away. So we, especially in Thailand, we definitely ate out for every meal. And then our hostels were gorgeous.
mhm, and then we even had the, Airbnb on, the ocean, the Indian Ocean, down in Koh Lanta, that could not be beat, but kinda yeah, going back to your point on the money, um there's the experiences we all want to have, but one of those fixed costs is sleeping. and you can't factor that one out. You really have to get smart on where you're staying. And of course, two young women in their early 20s traveling by themselves, we wanted to make sure we were staying in safe accommodations. So that was a big factor to making sure we chose hostels that, didn't look like uh, holes holes in the walls, because we
Yes.
definitely came across those ones, but we were very fortunate that all of our hostels had fairly good security, especially in Thailand.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then kind of one little trick that we did with all the long haul flights is we made sure we booked them as red eyes, so that would take a few nights out of our accommodation budget.
Yeah, definitely. Because when we were discussing this before we recorded the episode, we really figured out that we spent probably 4 or 5 days on a plane.
Yeah, well, I think if without having to look, I'm pretty sure we were on 12 flights in total. And a lot of those were minimum 10 hours
Yep.
to to fly. So that became kind of our bedroom in the sky, so to say.
It really did, and I recall in Australia that by uh airplane number 9,
Hmm.
the security guards tried to mess with us a little bit at the security gate, and we just blankly looked at them and said, "We've been on 9 different flights
Listen,
in
buddy,
we've been
this is
on."
flight number 9. Like we aren't messing around. Just put us on the plane. Here's our bag, okay?
And he just was like, "Okay, you guys can
Yeah,
go."
yeah.
He just said that, "You get a lot of people coming through here, you gotta have fun sometimes."
He was a good guy. He just picked the wrong time and the wrong 2 girls to play a prank on at an airport.
He really did.
Especially
But
after we just flew from Bangkok to Hong Kong and then to, Cairns.
yeah, definitely. But into point number 2 of our travel philosophy, on the topic of money as well, is that we found that with focusing on key areas that we really wanted to see this time around, we got to invest in numerous really incredible experiences that we otherwise wouldn't have been able to.
Absolutely. The things that we saw in every country, was incredible, and this is one thing that we definitely noticed when, we were traveling and you meet so many interesting people around the world, and a lot of them had been in Thailand, especially on very long trips. They were there for 3 months, 6 months, up to a year, 2 years. And, of course, you sit down at dinner and you start talking about what you've seen and what you've done. And really, in our 2 weeks that we were in Thailand, we had packed more into that time frame than some of these people had
Mhm.
packed into 6 months. So, I know it's kind of glorified that people want to take the big long trips and stuff like that, but the money and just your interest in a different place, it's finite. So you want to kind of keep it exciting a little bit and just um, have a little bit of kind of thrill to go see all these different things. And then it's not like you're keep pushing it off and you're like, oh well, we've got 2 months to do this, so we'll do it then. But then sometimes you run out of money or you run out of time and you just never do it. So I'm really glad that we only went for that short period of time.
Mhm. And if I remember correctly, we each selected our kind of top experience that we each wanted to have in each country that we went to, and we booked those ahead of time just so that we had a bit of structure.
Yeah, and I think, going back to the budget, that also helped because a few of those things we were able to pay up front for.
Mhm.
So it wasn't like we were trying to drop all this money at once. We had some experiences that I think we paid for back in August, and we didn't go on our trip until January of 2019.
Yeah, I if I recall honestly, we only for out of our big experiences that we had, we only paid for 2 when we were on the trip itself.
I think so, yeah.
I remember one of I remember one of them was the dolphins.
Yeah, that was a last minute thing in New Zealand to go swim with dolphins, and
We did
then
not swim with them.
well, we swam with a seal.
We did. We
Yep,
did.
yeah, and, we definitely saw lots of dolphins on our trip, but, because it was, calving season, dolphins are calves, right?
I think so.
Okay, well, it was baby dolphin season,
Okay.
and, New Zealand law is that you cannot swim with the pods if there are babies, um, so that was, kind of a a a good thing because it was really cute that you got to see all these little baby dolphins, and
Mhm.
then kind of a bad thing because we did wanna get in the water with them, but, you gotta respect that.
Exactly, and we did get to go in with something cool anyway, with that little sea lion,
Yes, that was
but
fun.
with the few minutes that we were in the water with the sea lion, I feel like I would have been okay having not swam with the dolphins because it was really deep
Oh
and
my
really
god.
scary.
That was on our trip, we were in, Thailand in the Indian Ocean, beautiful clear water, you just float there, it's like a bathtub, and then in Australia at, the Great Barrier Reef, it's, clear as day and, also very warm, but then you get
Mhm.
to New Zealand, and it's cold water and very dark and very blue, and, you can't see anything, it was like literally swimming in the blue abyss.
Yeah, you don't know what's down there,
Yeah, like, I
and
think they might have filmed Jaws in that body of water. It was pretty dark.
it was pretty scary, and, I'm glad that when we went surfing, we didn't really think about what was underneath us.
No, we were also in a lot shallower water, not in a giant bay.
I know, but they had the riptides.
Oh my god. They did. That's a story for another day. We'll do another episode on all of our crazy adventures on this trip because they are they're
Yep,
pretty
we
great,
can't spoil them.
but I guess no, we can't spoil them. So, okay, getting back on track here. So yeah, we really encourage keeping that time frame tight and really investing into the research of your
Mhm.
experiences. That way, you can really narrow down uh, what you want to do when you're there. And we don't want it to come off where we had every minute of our trip scheduled and planned. We just made sure that those really important things that we wanted to see and do were scheduled in there. And then we left time to pick up different adventures that we would learn from other people or once we got into the country. I know in Thailand, one of them was the cooking class. That was
Mhm.
a fantastic experience that will stick with me forever, and that was definitely not something that was planned.
No, it wasn't, and that really nicely ties into point number 3 and our final point of this episode is that with having the shorter time frame, it really keeps the trip novel and exciting because part of our philosophy when we were leaving was that we didn't want to travel just to experience our own life in another country. We
Absolutely.
wanted to travel because we wanted to experience the cultures of where we were visiting. And we also wanted to keep a sense of wonder and adventure in everything that we did, as opposed to just, trying to think of a good example here. We didn't want to just go to Australia per se to do the work study and have to worry about where am I living, where, like, what's my budget, et cetera, et cetera. We really wanted to just go and see the absolute best of the best for us.
Absolutely. And, this kind of ties into picking a good travel buddy. We're fortunate that we like a lot of the same things.
Mhm.
Although we also weren't afraid to have our own experiences outside of each other. Definitely in New Zealand, we were pretty comfortable
Yeah,
by then, kind of being able to explore different parts on our own. I know one big thing was going to Hobbiton for you.
I loved it.
Yeah, and for me, that just wasn't it wasn't big on my bucket list in New Zealand. I wanted to kind of explore something else, so I kinda went on a hike in the, redwood forest instead,
Mhm.
and I think individually, we both had a great day, and then we came back to dinner with new experiences to share with each other.
We did. We did also have a bit of separation anxiety.
It was a little weird. Okay, if you have been traveling with one person for, like, I think that was near the end of the trip, so it was, like, 5 weeks at the time,
Mhm.
Thailand, I don't think we left each other's side at all.
No, we did not.
Even in Australia, I don't think we still hadn't left each other's side,
We
and
didn't
then
have
for the
the
first
time to leave each other's
no,
side
no.
in Australia.
No, no. Australia was very concise and to the point in what we were doing.
Yes.
And then by New Zealand, we were very, like, relaxed. We're like, "Okay, we're gonna try it." And, like, I don't know, what were we, like, 4 hours away from each other?
Yep.
And we're like, "Oh my god, like, where's my friend? Where's" it's like the buddy system, you know?
This is the furthest we've been away from each other in 4 weeks.
Yes. And then even when we came home, we kinda struggled with that. We were like we had to call each other each day just to check in because we became so ingrained in each other's lives.
We did, and I remember because I went on a solo trip a couple weeks after we got back, and I called you from the airport saying that it felt so strange being in that kind of environment without you. I was like, "How do you do this alone?"
I know, like, we just got kinda dependent on each other and but more not dependent, we just got so used to, living with each other that
Mhm.
it was just kinda natural. We're like, "Okay, you're here, I'm here, and here we go."
It was basically like the best roommate situation ever.
Yeah, no, and, w that could have gone many different ways. I think depending on who you are, we got lucky, but we did have our time that we needed to self-reflect for a little bit, let's say.
Yes.
But we'll save that for another episode.
Yes.
And do you have anything more to say on our philosophy of travel or any quick tips?
Just to round out the last point that I wanted to touch on is that in doing it this way, it really brings a practicality to travel.
Hmm.
You don't need to try to figure out a way to take 3 weeks off of like, just take 3 months off of work,
Right.
or you don't need to worry about what happens if I run out of money
Hmm.
when I'm there for 5 months because you've already budgeted it out. And you don't really need to worry about how do you still have a fulfilling life out there because traveling can get really lonely. And when you're only away from your family and friends for 5 weeks, it's sometimes you do get a bit homesick, but it's not as bad. Where I find that the longer trips leave a lot of room to feel alone.
Absolutely, especially if you are doing a solo trip. And just adding on to your points there, um, you know, even some of your if your friends are going on those long trips, don't feel like you need to do that too. We're all on our own journey and everything is going to mean a little bit different to each one of us. So, if you only want to go someplace for a week or 2 weeks, that's fine.
Mhm.
Just do what feels right to you. This is your money, it's your life, and just build the dream trip that you see for yourself.
Exactly. And I think that is a perfect note to close on.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for episode 1. We are excited to come back with another little tidbit of one of our series. I'm not going to release what that is yet. We're going to keep it a little bit of surprise.
Mhm.
But until next time, always remember, live like tea.
Live like tea.